So hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 224 today of Level Up. 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A where your questions really do drive the show. If you're watching on YouTube, then you can find out much, much more about what APMG International does in our channel. So I do recommend that you give the video a like and, of course, subscribe to find out so much more. Ella today is already over in the social chat, so she's introducing herself. Please do let her know your name and, of course, the city from where you're joining. Ella's going to post some links so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like the panel to answer. And, of course, for you to be able to add your own as well. Your questions are selected, then your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show. And quite right too. So do get those in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Managing in an era of rapid technological, economic and social change is increasingly problematic as organizations, teams, and even our own families struggle to understand how best to manage and mitigate risk, but not just the negatives, also how best to exploit those opportunities that organizational change brings about. In the second of this year's series on managing change, we've got an amazing panel lined up to share their thoughts with you and some of their experiences as well. So let's jump in and introduce them. Akosua Acheampong is working for a UK government agency. She is a business change manager supporting multiple digital transformation projects, passionate coach and champion of people centricity in how we work. She was part of a core team who rolled out a national policy to over 150 local government organisations around the country. Akosua has a wealth of experience, rather, to share. So welcome to Level Up. Great to see you.
Thanks, Nick. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Melissa Subban is officially a people strategist and the founder of the HappyFactory. And there's a brilliant name for a consulting house, isn't it? Who consult on organizational agility, transformational change, with a real focus on unlocking human potential in all of its flavors and forms. An author in her own right, she's been published by the SEIFSA and has the unofficial title, which I love, of the Chief Office Fairy in her company. So welcome to Level Up, Melissa. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm loving being here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Bev Andrews, of course, rejoins. She is a leader and inspiring change professional working, of course. I do apologise, Bev. Just kind of jumped straight out of my head. Based in Western Australia, working for Aspire, she works with a whole range of organisations across her client base, not just in Australia, but also regionally and globally as well. I do apologise. Welcome back to Level Up, Bev. Great to see
you. Yeah, you're welcome, Nick. Thank you. And welcome, everybody. It's great to be here again.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And Malini rejoins as well. Bev, of course, is a familiar face to our audience. Malini is also based in Melbourne and an accomplished business relationship manager. Malini works tirelessly to make sure that you build great connections with your colleagues, with stakeholders, with your value chain, really, as an individual professional throughout your working life, and works tirelessly to promote those things. So welcome back to Level Up, Malini.
Thank you, Nick, and hello to my fellow panelists and to all our viewers.
Thank you very much indeed. Ron Leeman, he is the founder over at the Highway of Change, where he consults with clients around the world from his base in Thailand, a pragmatic change manager. And I think it's fair to say Ron tells things how they are and is not afraid to, in inverted commas, speak truth to power to help them in order to be able to see their way through tricky situations and chart good progress. Welcome back to Level Up, Ron.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm back again. And yes, I do tell it the way it is. But I think that needs to be done sometimes.
Indeed it does. And we have an amazing panel champions of inclusivity, of diversity. We have experienced people. We have people working across industries, not just in commercially, but also in the public sector as well. So it's a fantastic group for today. So no level up would be complete without a question master. So it'd be great to introduce Charlotte Miller, who joins us today from the Thames Valley here in the UK. Good afternoon, Charlotte. How are things with you?
They're very good. Slight cold, and it's quite breezy out there, hence the windswept look.
Okay. All right. Well, stay indoors if you're able to, just for the next 45 minutes or so. And we welcome everybody who's joining online. I can see lots of folks introducing themselves. So we'll head over to the social chat in a few moments. But before we get there, let's have our first question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. Our first question is from Becky Edwards. Becky asks, there is a lot of change manager roles out there and lots of change managers. What specific skills would help you stand out from the crowd?
All right. So this is quite important, isn't it? You need to differentiate yourself in order to be able to secure, that next role. Malini, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Melissa.
Becky, thank you for a great question to kick this off. I think for me personally, the number one skill would relate to emotional intelligence, because change tends to evoke strong emotions, and you can expect some people to respond warmly, some people to be passive aggressive, and some people to be outright opposed to the change. And you have to learn to manage the emotions of other people, and you have to learn to manage your own emotions as well. So I think that ability to empathize with others and manage emotions is critical.
Thank you very much indeed. Really good points there to kind of make sure that how you're engaging with people is at all times, professional and moderated and so on. I totally agree with that. Melissa, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Akosua.
Thanks, Nick. So I've got a similar approach in terms of emotional intelligence, but focusing on intuition. I think it's extremely important as change managers that we understand intuitively what people require, because we are changing the minds of humans, right? We are dealing with humans. And then on the other side, I would think that a really key skill for us to be thinking about in the change community network is the ability to use AI. And I think AI prompting is a really key skill that people can use as change managers in order to make their lives a lot easier as things grow.
Thank you very much indeed. It's all about that, really, isn't it? To try and give people the confidence and also the support in order to make those next steps and to make it a little easier, a journey a little easier, a bit more straightforward as well. So thank you very much indeed, Melissa. Akosua, and then Ron.
Thank you. Yeah, good question. I think one of the key skills it comes down to being able to analyze situations. So I think as change managers, a core competency is the ability to see what perhaps your project team or your team members don't see when it comes to impact of a change on a particular group of people, users, etc. So I think what would help you stand out from the crowd is the ability to see what others don't see. So, being able to apply your analytical skills, being able to assess the size of impacts, any impacts that may not have been thought about before, and being able to really identify that and bring that to the forefront. And usually is all based on people centricity. So as Malini said as well, and Melissa said, is all about that intuition as well, to really understand how the change will impact any particular user group, etc.
I think you're right. I think there is an element of this kind of intuition. I like that word, actually, intuition. There's a way of reading between the lines and engaging our emotional intelligence, if you like, to try and get a true and three-dimensional, almost four-dimensional picture of the current situation that people are in, and also the future state of the organisation wishes to arrive at. So thank you very much indeed, Akosua. Great answer. Ron, your thoughts, please, then we'll go to Bev.
Interesting question. Thank you, Becky. I think the first thing I would advocate is keep it simple. Yeah, because I think there's a tendency for some change managers, not all change managers, to bring in a bit of complexity in things like language and stuff like that. So keep it simple so people can understand what you're talking about and what you're trying to deliver. Another one is to stand firm in the face of adversity, because you're going to meet a lot of resistance or reaction, whichever one you want to call it. So, there's you really shouldn't back down. You should sort of stand firm and take it on the chin if you have to. People, it's a stupid answer, but there are change managers out there that kind of don't involve the people as much as they should. So, make sure you involve the people. Then there's obviously the obvious one is knowledge of artificial intelligence, because that's the way the business is going now. There's also psychology and neuroscience, because at the end of the day, it's the brain that makes the decisions, and those decisions affect the change. And finally, there's no harm in having a bit of charisma, stand out in the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that, we all need to develop, isn't it? That interface, between ourselves, however knowledgeable we might be. As consultants, we need to think about how do others perceive us and what can we do to help them, see the value really in the ideas and the thoughts that we share with them. Thank you very much indeed, Ron. And Bev, final thoughts on this one.
Okay, I was thinking that there's probably two, which might wrap up a lot of what the panel have been sharing already. One's around that really pragmatic approach, so keeping things simple, but putting them into some very simple and clear, practical application for people. When these changes are coming through, they're usually considered to be disruptive or just another thing that people have to cope with. So keeping it simple and pragmatic. The other thing that I think really makes you stand out as a change manager, you're entering into people's workplaces. They share things with you that they might not share with other colleagues, and you get to hear a lot of different things that are occurring. And so making those connections, the people connections, the relationships, but also listening to some of the things that they share around something that might be going in one part of the business that could leverage what you're doing and accelerate it, or could support the change that you're putting in. So just making those connections around your change is not the only thing that's happening. There's all these other things that are occurring. And so just helping people to make it simple, pragmatic, and connected.
Thank you very much indeed. Simple, pragmatic, and connected. There's a quote to kind of start us off, social team. It's a great mantra, isn't it, to remember. It's not about what it's about managing the complexity on behalf of others and providing, that simple, pragmatic advice and guidance, in a connected fashion. So really very good indeed. Thank you very much indeed, panel. I'm loving this people-centric start actually to a show all about managing change in 2024. So nice to hear the human element coming to the front and the robots being kept in their place for once, which is really great. So let's look across to social, if we can, and see who's joining us online. These are, of course, our producers. Without your questions and comments, we don't get to answer anything. So it's really important that you jump in the chat and start making your contribution. Irene rejoins from London. So that's really great to see. So thank you for joining today. Lovely to have you as part of our production team. Mark rejoins. He's starting to become a regular contributor. He's joining from Izmir over in Turkey. So it's absolutely great to have you again online with us today, Mark. And you're a little closer, my friend, to the weekend than we are in the UK at any rate. So well done for getting there first and getting there early, so to speak. Boleslaw rejoins. Thank you so much, Boleslaw. Always great value in the chat, always helping others, and a true level up community contributor. Thank you very much indeed from joining all the way from Poland. And to wrap up on our social visit for the moment, Niger is watching from Canada. So welcome, Nigel. I'm not sure if you're east side of Canada or over there in British Columbia in the west, in which case, good morning, okay, or good lunchtime, or, well, it's still morning, actually, over on the East Coast as well, isn't it? But very early in British Columbia. Don't wake anybody up if you're over there. All right, very good. Now, if you are joining online, then do please put your questions in for the panel to answer. That's what we're here for. So do get those questions in early and we'll get them through to the panel as well. In the meantime, Charlotte, I think we should press on. We'll take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. Our next question is from Ron. Would the panel recommend that project managers get change management training even though they have different delivery methods?
Okay, all right. Well, Ron, with your patience, my friend, I'll come to you a little later. Bev, why don't you start us off, please?
Oh, they certainly need some change management changing. Some of them actually need their own mindsets changed. But seriously, definitely when I work with project and program managers, portfolio managers, we're both trying to achieve the same outcomes. We're just looking through different lenses. We're two sides of a coin. I've made the time to actually really understand how projects operate and the language and the cadence and what to expect, so that I can ensure that the change elements that I'm pulling together align or in sync. And you know, I try to coach my change managers to actually understand a little bit more around change. The outcome is that we're trying to achieve the same benefits. We're interacting with the same stakeholders. We have one sponsor, and we can't achieve success without both of us being aligned and in sync. So most definitely, I think it's essential that you understand a little bit more outside of your own discipline.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's such an important thing. You don't need to do other people's jobs for them, but you do need, I think, an empathy for what it is that they are doing. So you can see things kind of from that alternative lens, through that alternative lens, if you like. Akosua, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Melissa.
I've been screaming this, I think, for the past 6 months, to be honest. I actually wrote a LinkedIn post around this, because I think it is critical for project managers to at least understand the foundational requirements of why they need change managers. I think both disciplines, we work, close together. We work hand in hand, and the successful delivery of the project, realization of benefits is based on, it hinges on project managers understanding why they need to keep change managers involved in the project at every stage. I think sometimes when that lack of understanding is there, what you have is a project manager just pushing along, just thinking about the technical delivery, not really considering the people that will be using, if it's an IT solution, changes to ways of working, the people that are impacted by it. So what you'll get at the end of the project is the project outcome or project outputs, but it doesn't necessarily mean you get the benefits. So I think, project managers, I think sometimes change managers, we do have to spend a bit of time when we, are on project teams, bringing up that capability, that level of understanding across the team to say, hello, you need me. Don't leave it too late until you try and engage a change manager. So I think it is absolutely critical and crucial.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think now, from when, in contrast to when I was consulting about 100 years ago, I think there is a greater understanding that actually, adoption and embedding innovation can't happen unless people get on board with it, all right, do things differently and so on. So it's a very, very important part of the outcome of projects is, how people actually adopt and change and so on. So lots and lots of merit in that as well. So thank you very much indeed, Akosua, really great. Let's hear from Melissa and then we'll go to Ron.
Thanks, Nick. It's wonderful to see all the passion from everyone because, as change managers, this is definitely one of the things that strike a chord with us. I think from my perspective, what I've been seeing in the industry is with the rise of agile change management, scaled agile, agile in general, you're finding that there's a lot more focus on delivery and commercialization. Whereas change management kind of brings in all of the other elements and then ensures that you reap the benefits, in order to commercialize and get people doing what you need them to do, adopting what you need them to do. So I really think that it's an add-on, it's a great add-on, and getting that understanding of almost a strategic view of how humans behave and how they're going to make or break your project is really good.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. The challenge for all of us, I think, is to kind of think around our primary discipline about where do we need to augment it. And, if you're set on having a career to be a project or a program manager or even a portfolio manager in the future, then, getting that grounding now on, related disciplines, and in particular, managing transformational change is such an important thing to do. So I thoroughly agree with every panelist so far. It's vital for you to be able to do that. And I think we were showing a few moments ago that kind of link through to the change management certifications. Ron, what are your thoughts on this in terms of, getting project managers through not just an awareness stage, but maybe even a little further?
Yes, they should. Absolutely, 150%. There are a few problems around this, though. First of all, the question mentions mindsets, and mindsets are actually quite important because the project manager has quite an analytical, focused mindset, focused on deliverables, etc. Okay, a change manager needs to be very flexible and has a very open mindset and so forth. The other problem is that the PMI's PMBOK advocates that project managers should be responsible for things like stakeholder engagement, communication, and so forth. So project managers think they're already change managers. Yeah, they think they can deliver change as well as the project deliverables, which is, in my context, not quite right. It's just a totally different skill set. I recently wrote an article called "Are we looking at integration or are we looking at alignment?" Yeah, because there's a lot of talk about integrating the two roles. Well, integration is that, and you can't do it because of the different way they work. Alignment is two people working in collaboration with each other, yeah, and they're working off each other. Yeah, project manager, change manager. So yes, they should.
Thank you
I'll
very much indeed.
Repeat my answer.
That's all right. No, that's absolutely fine, Ron. Thank you. I agree with that. And depending on the scope and the scale, really, of projects, isn't it? But if you think about something larger than an engagement and smaller than a kind of global rollout, somewhere on that continuum, becomes very, very, very evident that you need more than one person in order to be able to focus on both, to give both aspects, a sensible mind share and time and commitment and expertise. You need more than one person doing that work. I did hear from a previous panelist, I think it was right at the beginning of Level Up, actually. It was around about episode 2 or even 3, all of that long time ago, that the difference is that the project manager, in some ways, is focused on preparing the solution for the organization. And the change manager is preparing the organization for the solution. Okay, so exactly. You got there ahead of me. So no, really good answers. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And Ron, interesting question. And thank you very much for submitting it. We learned so much from each other on Level Up. It's a really great way to develop ourselves professionally. So thank you. Charlotte, I can see we're starting to get quite an active discussion going on in the chat. And do we have our next question for the panel?
We have a series of live questions coming up now, Nick. One of the first is a topic that Ron mentioned earlier on. It's a live question from Carrick Brown. Change management seems to learn a great deal from neuroscience. What can we learn from other scientific disciplines to become effective change managers?
Okay, Malini, why don't you start us off and then we'll hear from Ron.
I think, Carrick, if we extend, from neuroscience onwards, so, neuroscience looks at, behavior, understanding the psychology of an individual. We can also look at related disciplines like organizational psychology or sociology and anthropology. All of these actually seek to help us understand how humans actually interact with each other, whether it's in society or, within organizations. It helps to inform how power structures are determined, culturally, how people connect with each other and so on. And I think those sorts of things are incredibly helpful for change managers to be aware of, because no matter where we live in the world now, we are living in increasingly multicultural societies. And also we are living in a global world, so the more we can understand how people relate to each other, I think would be very helpful.
I'd agree with that. I think it's one of the most exciting things to do, to work with people. It's one of the most rewarding, fulfilling things to do, is to work for and with colleagues in different countries, different cultures, different belief systems, different ways of doing things. It's a very enriching and rewarding experience. And so I think building our understanding of that and the social and the cultural implications of how you go about doing certain things is absolutely critical, to be respectful and to be truly inclusive and engaging with colleagues around the world. So totally agree with that. Thank you, Malini, for championing that. Let's hear from Ron, and then we'll go to Melissa.
First thing I'll say is that psychology and neuroscience are now becoming more and more evident in use by change managers. One of the things is, we're dealing with people. And how do people react to change? What actually makes them react to change? Well, it's this grey matter up here, yeah? Because you have 10% of the prefrontal cortex, which does all your thinking and all your analytics, yeah? The rest of the brain, 90%, is all your sort of regular type, automatic things, habit, and so forth. So when something hits the back of your 90% and it sends it to the front, that's the reaction that happens. And that's the reaction, like resisting change and so forth. And we can also learn a lot from psychology, in terms of psychology, organizational psychology, etc., because it's all about, again, you mentioned the word human centricity. I don't like that, by the way. I don't like that phrase, but that's just me. It's all about people again. Yeah, and it's all about how people react. And people react based on what their brain does, which is neuroscience.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And we'll talk a little bit more, I think, about that in a few moments. Melissa, what are your thoughts on this? Can change management and change managers learn from other disciplines as well?
Most definitely. I see the commenters around neuroscience. I would add on, what about all the pseudosciences that are now coming into the fore? People talk about vibrational alignment. People talk about epigenetics. This is the world that we live in now. So if it is what people are engaging on, then, mind, body, energy at work becomes something that we need to integrate into our roles. And I'm really passionate about that. And then the one other thing that comes to mind is, depending on the change that you're working on, but I think diplomacy and geopolitics is extremely important. It's becoming even more important in the world today, considering, what's currently happening. So I would think that those kind of sciences need to be brought into changes depending on the type of environment that you're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely right. I agree with that. I think it's, you have an opportunity here to be able to be what Meredith Belbin spoke of in his work on high-performing teams as the resource investigator. Now, I might be showing my age there, and folks in the chat, if he's renamed or if the team at the organisation, the institute where Meredith Belbin works, have renamed or updated the RI role in team theory, then let me know. But that's about going out and bringing in, new resources to the project and looking out for those things which are going to be of benefit. Akosua, your thoughts on that? Have I shown my age and spoken unwittingly about resource investigators when it's no longer called that?
Oh, well, I'll leave that for the audience to determine. To be honest.
Okay, fair enough.
I think as my panelists were sharing their views on it, what came to mind is probably more the socioeconomic considerations when it comes to managing change. I think that will have a direct impact on how the change is perceived, and obviously socioeconomic considerations, they change depending on what's happening. If we think back to COVID season, how a change project will be delivered would probably be different from how it would be delivered outside of the COVID situations. I think as change managers, it's always worth bearing in mind what's happening in the economic climate, what's happening in the political climate when we are delivering change, because all of that will have an impact on stakeholders' reactions, how they perceive it, the level of resistance that you can also meet. So I think that all needs to be formed as part of the change analysis, or just assessing how likely it is to land well. So
absolutely, thank you so much indeed. Really helpful. Bev, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say there was something that I was leaning into, which was around sustainability. And, from a change management perspective, we talk about embedding and sustaining. And this was through some university research. And they were actually talking about, for to be sustainable, when we think about the environment and the sciences, the social element, we put a lot of focus on that. And we saw from COVID the fact that if we were connected socially, we could thrive, but where we were disconnected, then we had lots of mental and other issues sort of start to arise. And then what we've seen fall out of that is this economic challenge where there's lots of countries now starting to move towards the not the depression side, but where those that have and those that don't has actually got bigger. And then the whole environment, making sure that our environment around us is sustainable. And if you think about the generations that we have in our organizations now, and we look at the different expectations that people have, and that you bring your whole self to work and you have your whole self in your life as well as work, that we need to think about that from an environment perspective to be able to get that sustaining change. So there's a lot of different elements now that start to come together that we have to think about from the external environment as well as the internal environment.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We're just scrambling in the background to get a couple of resources through to the audience, but I completely agree with you on that. Thank you very much, panel. And thank you, Carrick. What a brilliant question to kind of put to everybody. Got a few comments over on social that we're just seeing now, and that's really different thinking, and I love it, Carrick. So thank you very much indeed for suggesting it, my friend. Have a look at chaos theory. Now, if you're working on a project, no matter what your role is, I think at least an element of chaos theory will resonate with you. You do not have to be a scientist to resonate with, the simple wording within chaos theory and get the most out of that. And there is, of course, as well, a lot of work now going on about how do you optimize large rollouts? And there's a lot of statistics actually as well on projects about learning lessons from the past and crunching that data to be able to identify critical paths and where we can improve. And if you're interested in Meredith Balbin's work, really fascinating work, looking at you might not be a perfect person, but you can probably put together a really high-performing team, and do give that QR code a little scan and read up about it together with the other certifications that we've spoken about previously. So there you go. Excellent. Charlotte, I can see we've got a lot of live questions kind of stacking up now, so we best press on, panel.
Yes, thanks, Nick. Next question is from one of our viewers that you introduced earlier on. The $1 million question is how to transition from a communications role to a change management role. Is having a certification enough?
Well, it's an interesting one because there's two elements to this, isn't there? How do you get yourself in front of people so that they can meet you? Because if you're a communication specialist, there's going to be, an element of that. You'll be able to shine once you begin to communicate. But until you get that opportunity, you need some way of kind of breaking in through there. Malini, why don't you start us off? Then we'll hear from Bev.
Neka, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I think having a certification will help because it will introduce you to, different methods of managing change, and also, give you some idea of, some templates and things that you could use in your communications. But I think in your situation, it sounds like you're already working in a communications role, and I think you're really well placed to try and get some experience in your workplace itself, in the change management context. So in response to one of the earlier questions, my fellow panelists, explained at length how project managers sometimes need help. They really need support to be able to manage change. And perhaps there are some projects in your organization where they do not have a budget to bring on board a full-time change manager. And you might actually try and see if you can support the project manager with some of the change communications. That might be a way to actually showcase your interest and also your capability.
I could not agree more. Okay, you'll find a large proportion of people end up in quite senior roles, leadership roles, and project management is a situational leadership role, and they struggle with clarity on communication. They may resort to overly technical language, perhaps, or they're a detail person, so they share all the detail with you, or they don't share enough. And so somebody to work with them to help them makes a massive difference. And if you're good at comms, you've got friends for life in the project management community. So get in there and see if you can add some value. Excellent. Thank you so much indeed, Malini. Brilliant. Bev, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Ron.
I definitely agree. And you took the words out of my mouth, Linda. What I was going to just add on to that is make sure you get the right certification, because not every certification is going to necessarily drive you in that direction. So if you are in an organization and you do have projects, then there is the opportunity to shadow or to get a mentor. But if you get yourself the APMG certification, for example, the foundation to start with, there are quite a few little models and tools in there that you could actually have a go at practicing, so that you could build on your communication approach, and then maybe add in some things around the whole stakeholder engagement piece, so that you can get some stand out in the crowd, if you like, with your stakeholder engagement. Start adding on some of the impacts, building in some of the impact models as well. So just try a few of those little tactics just to build on what you're actually doing. Get a mentor, and see if you can move across into a sort of like quasi comms and change analyst role, and then you can build from there.
I think that's a brilliant advice there. Mentoring, coaching, volunteering all fit together really, really well. Ron, final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, very briefly. If you're in communications, which is one of the three foundations of successful change, the other two being sponsorship and stakeholder engagement, you become immersed in change. Yeah, you actually work in collaboration with a change manager, and you actually thrive off the knowledge that the change manager is giving you when you're talking about what you need to communicate, when you need to communicate, and so forth. I don't believe that certification is necessary so long as you have the necessary knowledge, etc. But certification can help.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Super important. Very good. Well, thank you so much indeed, Anika. It was a great question to put to the panel. We really appreciate it. Kath Convery makes a couple of good points actually over in the chat. So we're just going to listen to some of those. So for those of you who are listening on the audio side of things, Kath talks about making a point of volunteering to be a change agent is a great way to break into that kind of role. But think also about developing your own skills, all right, so that you're not landing onto a kind of with a barren environment around you, that you have the basics for, being able to build a solid career. And there was a secondary comment, I think, that she also made about Kotter's 8-step change model. And for those of you who have read it, this makes complete sense. Be enthusiastic, communicate frequently and concisely, and kindly, I would add as well. All right, that's a great way, great little word, adverb there to kind of slip in as well. It's not one of Kotter's, but it's definitely one of mine. Okay, good. Let's move on then, Charlotte. We'll take our next live question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. It's one from our regular viewers, Alona. What tools are the panel using to identify resisting forces in the change management?
All right. So tools, techniques, folks, how do you go about doing these sorts of things? Let's mix it up a little if we can. Bev, why don't you start us off?
I use 2 tools, my left and right ears. You just have to you just have to listen to people, people tell you, they let you know, you can see it, you can hear it, you get the vibe. There's lots of different tools out there, but you just take your ears, you listen, you shut your mouth up, and you empathize, and then you work out where that resistance is coming from, and off you go.
I absolutely love that advice. Thank you so much indeed. Down to earth, practical, and it works every time. And incidentally, it works every time. Every time, yep. Folks. If you want something guaranteed to work today, we can guarantee, underwrite, all the rest of it, ensure all of those scary words that you wouldn't normally say. Use your ears and your mouth in that proportion, and it will be so much better. Thank you so much indeed. Let's go to Malini next, please, and then Melissa.
I just loved that, Bev. My grandmother used to say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and God intended you to use it in that proportion. So listen more than you speak. So I agree. You could. There are all sorts of tools available, and you could use them. But if you're actually not actively listening to what people are saying, and also what is not being said, then you're going to completely miss the point. One of the more structured approaches or tools that I like to use is organizational change readiness assessments. So this helps me to get some data around what's the level of awareness about the change or commitment to the change. What about people's capability or even capacity for that change? And then I can use that to add substance to my narrative about what the change approach needs to be.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Malini. Melissa, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Akosua.
Thanks, Nick. So I'm more aligned to Bev with sort of common sense, but an unconventional one would be to stand around the water cooler or sit in the canteen and hear, what the gossip is. So a quick tip for people to do is I have what we call gossip sessions. So we have a little tea session. We get people to write down on stickies, what is the current gossip that's going on, and totally anonymous, and then we put it up, and then we figure out what's going on. I hear the strangest of things, from celebrity gossip all the way down to who said what in the office. But when you sift through all of that, you kind of get to the heart of what is the fears, and that leads to resistance.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think one of the lessons to learn as a change management professional is where the real social network is in an organization. It rarely maps cleanly to the organizational structure. So you will have social leadership happening very differently. There'll be somebody in the tribe who is the social leader, and he or she will know everything. you need to do is find them, really. And then, kind of tap into that grapevine, if you like, to be able to get a sense of what's going on. And you're absolutely right. Often, the higher up the organization you are, sometimes, even though you don't wish to be this way, an unintended consequence of the C-suite door is that people tell you what they imagine you want to hear. That's not always actually what you do want to hear. Akosua, save me from my own incompetence. What would you suggest around tools?
I think I agree with what everyone said so far. As different panelists have been talking, it's like, oh, that's another idea gone. So, I think one idea that hasn't been mentioned, probably, I think setting up. I mean, we tend to always set up a network of change champions, or SPOCs, right? So they are quite critical to delivering change across the various departments. So I think first thing is important, picking the right people to be your essentially change agents, but they're also your channel to understand what's the mindset, what are the concerns, what are the issues that aren't necessarily being communicated up, but amongst colleagues, they might be aware of it. So I think that's quite a key way in which you can understand what the resistance is on the ground, because if you're sitting in a certain position, you won't know what the team that are maybe geographically located somewhere else is thinking. But if you've got a key SPOC that sits within the team and they have a safe space to express any concerns, etc., you're able to pick up on any key resistance that might be arising within that group. I think overall, like what's been said, just listening, speak to people, building those key relationships. I find that as change managers, people do open up to us. They see us as a bit more of a conduit between a project and them. So being that listening ear for them to express areas of concern or resistance, I think,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Thank you very much. Ron, final thoughts on this one?
I haven't got a lot more to say, to be honest, because everyone said everything. So just to condense things, yes, you've got your right ear, you've got your left ear, you've got your eyes, you've got your mouth. But if all else fails, you get the ultimate resistance tool, which is your baseball bat.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much indeed. I'm more of a fan of cake than I am of baseball, but there you go. I think that cake can work wonders as well. Very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Great question, Ilona. A consistent contributor to the Level Up community throughout. Always insightful, always great questions. Thank you, Ilona. Charlotte, next question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. Another live question from Nija. Are there any associations I can join to help me network with other change managers?
All right, we're just going to take a couple of answers to this, some different suggestions, please. Bev, what are your thoughts on membership bodies, associations, groups of like-minded people?
There's two that come to mind that I would recommend. They're both global. So you've got the Change Management Institute, which is the CMI, and you've got the Association of Change Management Professionals, which is the ACMP. Depending on where you're globally located, you might have access to one or both. But my advice is that you can do a lot of things online with either of those associations or any association that is nearby. So you can actually do some face-to-face networking as well as virtual.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Some great advice there. Ron, associations, membership bodies?
Yeah, I agree. ACMP and CMI, but there is a fundamental problem having two associations that purport to look after professional change managers. Both have different ways of implementing change. The ACMP has the CCMP and its standard, and the CMI has its body of knowledge. They're both different. So how do you choose which one you want to join? Yeah, you have to make a choice. It doesn't matter. I mean, the CMI is in Australia, ATMP is in the US, but they've got chapters all over the world. And it's a difficult choice. And if you want to go onto LinkedIn, I actually wrote about this a few weeks ago. It is a difficult choice for individuals. Which one do I do? Which approach is the favoured approach? Is it the body of knowledge, or is it the the standard?
Okay, well, Bev has the answer, Ron. So I think we should let her back in.
In the association, the ACMP chapter lead over here in Perth, I set that up and was the president for 4 years, and we've now grown it to the Australia-New Zealand chapter. And I was also the CMI chapter a few years ago as well. You're right, they do have two very different focuses, but it's like two sides of a coin. The ACM, the standard, tells you what to do. The SIMBOK, the change management body of knowledge, is very much around your competency and how to do it. And you can take elements of both. So it's no different to, you've got the PMI and you've got the APM or the AIPM. Yes, they do have differences, but a lot of the events are very much around the skill sets that change practitioners need.
Very good. All right. Thank you both for that. Final brief word on this, Akosua.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say you can also go on LinkedIn. There's so many really useful LinkedIn change management groups. Trying to think of some off the top of my head. I think Irrational Change is one of them. There's so many, and wealth of knowledge, people sharing their experience, writing articles, etc. So I think that's always a good stop. And I live on LinkedIn, so.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're on LinkedIn now watching us, you might want to look up the Continuous Change Community. It's actually, the page is entitled Change Capability Community, I think. I might have that wrong. But do have a little look over at that group. And there are lots and lots of online communities as well as the face-to-face ones. I do recommend finding like-minded people locally. If you're working in a city, it's relatively easy to do meetups and this kind of stuff. If you're working in a more rural kind of area and you're feeling a little bit left out, then join a community online. It's not all keyboard warriors. There are some real nice people actually developing the profession, helping others and so on, making contributions. Find them out, look at their social profiles, read what they have been writing. And if it resonates with you, then, follow them along and see what you can do. Very good. Charlotte, last question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. Live question from Kath Convery. Kath asked, does the panel think you need to be emotionally intelligent to be a great change manager?
No, I know Kath very well, actually. She's also a panelist. So she's used the minimum number of words for the maximum amount of impact here. So it's all about being a great change manager, if I may, Kath. All right. What are your thoughts, Melissa? Start us off.
Well, for me, I think you've got to be able to understand emotions. And along that emotional guidance scale, if you don't understand what it is, how do you expect to understand it in the people around you? And the people that's being impacted with it. But I think just to add on to that is self-awareness. I think as a change manager, it's extremely important to be self-aware, to be in touch with yourself and in tune with yourself and the environment that you're in so that you can identify resistance and execute change effectively.
Thank you very much. Excellent. I really appreciate that. Malini, your thoughts, and then very briefly, Bev.
Well, I think emotional intelligence is one of the critical skills for good change management, let alone great change management. And from my own experience, when I have, I've had the experience of working with change managers who did not have emotional intelligence, and I always felt like they were forcing change on me. Like change was being done to me, and I wasn't brought along in the way that I would have liked, and I didn't feel empowered to make the change myself. And I would never want anyone else to feel that way.
I completely agree with that. There's it's not even what's done sometimes, it's kind of how it's done that can, really make the difference. So totally agree with that. Bev, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Emotional intelligence, you need to have a growth mindset because you're continuously learning, you're listening to others, you're challenging your own perceptions. So definitely to be a great CM, you've got to have some good growth mindset and be emotionally intelligent.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Really, really good commentary, and a great question, Kath. Thank you so much for putting it in. And absolutely everybody today who's been contributing in the chat throughout. It's been a lively discussion. Cake does get some votes, actually. You might want to vote on Cake, actually, if you're in the audience right now. You've got a few minutes in which to do it. So do follow Kath's lead there and know you're more cake than baseball bat. Anyway, that's a good question to put to an audience on a Friday afternoon in the UK, and of course Friday evening, late evening actually, over in Australia. So let's go around the panel and hear your thoughts actually on today's event. Akosua, if we can come to you first, please. Your reflections on today.
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like we didn't have long enough, to be honest. We could talk about change management all day. But I think I've gained a lot. I've learned a lot. Different techniques, especially the question around other disciplines other than neuroscience. It got me thinking about areas that I need to explore as well in my change career. So yeah, it's been really, really enjoyable. Yeah, glad to have been on this panel with all of you. Thank you.
Brilliant. We've learned so much from you as well, Akosua. So great job. Very well done. Bev, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Ron.
I'd just like to thank everyone for such a diverse range of questions, and our panel for having such diversity in our thinking as well. And change itself and the roles of change are very diverse. So, it's not one box that you just have to tick. So look at your skills, look at what the roles are around you, and then just map out how do you close those gaps. That would be my advice for you.
Thank you very much indeed, Bev. Great advice it is too. Ron, your thoughts then, Malini?
I always love to come on Level Up. You know that, Nick, don't you? The good thing about I'm not joking. I do. I really do. The good thing about coming on Level Up is you are, as a panelist, challenged. You are challenged to answer some diverse and sometimes quite awkward questions, which can only be good because it's a learning process. Yeah. And, your brain needs to stay plastic. Yeah. So coming on a panel like this, answering questions on the fly, if you'll excuse the expression, is great. And I love it.
Indeed. Absolutely right. And we do genuinely learn so much from the producers online. They are providing us with great questions, and great questions are how everybody learns, I think, so great job to the producers. Malini, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Melissa.
Thank you for having me on Level Up again and for all the great questions. This topic in particular is something I've been very interested in ever since I saw Star Wars as a child and saw how Luke Skywalker persuaded Darth Vader to change from the dark side to the light.
Fantastic. We should do a Star Wars themed episode. You've got my brain thinking there, Malini. We'll do a Star Wars themed episode, and I can see Ron thinking ahead already and rummaging in his cupboard for his Stormtrooper outfit to be able to appear on that event. So thank you very much indeed. Great ideas there. Melissa, your thoughts, please, and then Charlotte.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to have to go and find Star Wars to watch this weekend. So I think I'm going to end with a little bit of advice to change managers or people that are wanting to become change managers. I think along my journey, I found that the more I know myself, the more I know other people. The more I support myself, because change management is not easy peasy work. So the more I support myself, the more I find I can support others. So don't forget yourselves and just enjoy the process of engaging with humans. That's
so very, very, I agree with you totally. It's so very, very important to make sure that as change professionals, our batteries are fully charged and we're able to keep giving. It is very much a giving role on any project and a giving profession. So do take time for yourselves as well. Don't get wrung out at the end of a hard week. Do actually take that moment to step away and recharge and rejuvenate. Charlotte, your reflections on today.
It's a big thank you from me. We've got several questions that we were unable to answer today because we did run out of time. One of the questions that I'd like to pick up on is communities that you can join to learn more. Level Up Your Career is a great community of practice. We've all shared today that we've learned lots of information and we talk about lots of things. And the only person really that can influence your change is you.
Absolutely right. We all need to do something. It just doesn't happen by accident or by osmosis. You actually need to go and do something about your own career. And I totally agree with that commentary, Charlotte, and those sentiments around professional development. You know, every week, 2 hours a week, folks, is, you know, a great enriching experience. I don't think I could afford the hourly rates of all of our experts on today's panel, never mind all of the other ones as well. So it's a fantastic free resource that people do give so generously. So thank you, panel, on behalf of our audience for doing exactly that, doing your bit to, you know, help us grow and develop as individuals and managers and, you know, coaches and so on. And also to our audience online, thank you very much for your brilliant questions today. We couldn't do it without you. Do watch out for your name in the credits if your question was selected. All right, now then, over on APMG's website, you may search, of course, for answers to more than 2,200 questions now. It's totally free resource connecting you with almost 300 experts from around the world. Don't forget that you may listen to the audio versions of all of the shows on your preferred podcast platforms. Just search for APMG International, Level Up Your Career, and you will, of course, find us. Monday, the 19th, coming up and looking forwards, we're turning our attention to authentic leadership on Level Up. That's 8 a.m. UK time, Monday morning here in the UK. Wednesday on the 21st, we're hosting a webinar on amplifying agile with neuroscience. So that's something to look forward to. Now, that one is a registered event. So do head to apmg-international.com and look up our events page to register and find out more. On the same day, we have another event, which is exploring how FitSM, service management product, can act as the glue for adopting SIAM. So if you're into service management and SIAM and governance and these kinds of things, do have a little look at that event. That's at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon UK time. And again, details on the website. Don't forget, please, if you're watching on YouTube, now's the time to click on the little like icon. It's very kind of you to do that. It doesn't cost you a moment and it helps other people find our content. And of course, subscribe to the channel and set that little alert bell ringing. Just ask us and we will send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.